Machismo has to die, says this protester. In a country where male pride is everything and the lives of women often secondary, these people are saying enough is enough.
I'm tired of living it and hearing it happen to my friends in the streets, in public transport, in university, at work.
90% of women have suffered some sort of sexual violence here in Mexico. We want to stay alive, they shout. The extreme end of gender violence is femicide. Women murdered because of their gender.
But every time I got one of these roles, I was surprised. Because most of the men I play ooze machismo, charisma, and power. And when I look in the mirror, that's just not how I see myself. But it was how Hollywood saw me. And over time, I noticed a parallel between the roles I would play as a man, both on screen and off. I've been pretending to be a man that I'm not my entire life. I've been pretending to be strong when I felt weak, confident when I felt insecure, and tough when really I was hurting. I think for the most part, I've just been kind of putting on a show. But I'm tired of performing. And I can tell you right now that it is exhausting trying to be man enough for everyone all the time.
Now that you've seen those two videos, you kind of have an idea of what I'm going to be covering in this video. So now let's start with some definitions. What is patriarchy? Patriarchy is a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family. What is sexism? Sexism is prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination typically against women on the basis of sex. What is misogyny? Misogyny is hatred, dislike, or mistrust of women, manifested in various forms such as physical intimidation and abuse, sexual harassment, and rape. Patriarchy, sexism, and misogyny have been around for a very long time, and it is something that is very common in Hispanic and Latin American culture. Throughout this video, I'm going to be saying machismo instead of patriarchy, and here's why. Machismo is a Latin American cultural analog to patriarchy. It means to have a strong or aggressive masculine pride. It's an ideology based on the idea that men dominate women, that men should behave with virility and women not. But not only does machismo hurt women, it hurts men as well. Now you may be wondering, how does machismo affect women? Machismo reinforces the idea of women as second-class citizens whose rights and opportunities, even when included in public policies, are undermined in their households, in the streets, at school, or work. In a Hispanic and Latin American household, women are taught that they are expected to serve in submissive roles, acting as caregivers or nurturers, and men are expected to be overbearing and imperious. It would be wrong for a woman to be in charge of the family or do the manly jobs, such as yard work, usually referred to as the harder job. So basically, the woman's future will be to become a housewife while the man is to work in order to provide for the family. In a Hispanic household, parents tend to be more strict with the females when it comes to house chores, going out with friends, being in a relationship, and having freedom, basically. While the men don't have any strict rules enforced upon them, they naturally have more freedom because they are men. One of the main reasons these young women in these Hispanic households struggle so much with their freedom is because of the internalized misogyny in their mothers. Now, what is internalized misogyny? Internalized misogyny is when women subconsciously project sexist ideas onto other women and even onto themselves. Internalized misogyny is made up of two main elements: self-objectification and passive acceptance of gender roles. Here are just a few examples. You can pause to read if you want. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence is violent or aggressive behavior within the home, typically involving the violent abuse of a spouse or partner. How does machismo cause domestic violence? The study presented at the 16th World Congress on Sexology says that cultural norms indicate that men must never say no to temptations on the street. This exposes many adolescents to damage from tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. It also justifies the use of violence, even against women, as a masculine form of channeling emotions or frustrations. A Mexican woman who has experienced domestic violence shows characteristics that are intrinsically related to her culture and social norms. In many cases, the Mexican woman accepts violence as a common practice, minimizing the impact of domestic violence.
No podía respirar, me tiró más al suelo y me seguía ahorcando. Lo único que se me ocurrió fue arruinarle la cara. De ahí me soltó y me dijo, en este momento yo te puedo matar. Me dijo.
Now, how does machismo affect men? Machismo is something that's strongly enforced in some men in Hispanic and Latin American communities. The norms of machismo vary from country to country, but to be a true machista means to be the one who can drink the most, sire the most sons, defend himself the most, dominate his wife, and command the absolute respect of his children. It is also part of the configuration to have strong sexual drives and seek variety in sexual relationships, while being possessive and jealous towards the faithful wife. From an early age, men are taught to have this mentality. It is enforced upon them. They are taught to be the man of the house and to be strong. If they showed any femininity, such as self-expression, or showed an interest in anything that isn't hyper-masculine, it would be considered a threat to their manhood. They would be considered weak and weird. This makes it difficult for men to be able to explore their sexuality, leaving many queer Latino men in the dark. Suppressing these emotions can really affect their relationship with their spouse and their kids, and it can also affect their mental health. Since these men never learn how to express themselves in healthy ways, they will resort to violence and will become sexist men. Men are taught that they are going to be the ones in charge of the family and provide for them. Machismo is strongly associated with the man's responsibility to protect and defend his family. It isn't bad to protect and defend your family, but it is done in such a toxic way. We need to let these men know at a young age that it is okay to cry, to express emotion, to be vulnerable, to be soft, and recognize that in no shape or form should that be a threat to their masculinity. We need to let these men know that their vulnerabilities and their sensitivities can become their strengths. While none of this is exclusive to race or ethnicity, the idea that men need to be hyper-masculine in order to be men is very much reinforced in Latino culture. Josiana Arroyo Martinez says, "These behaviors start in the household, when girls are taught to be responsible or to clean their brother's room, and boys are disconnected from responsibility, and they are ingrained in Latino families as women have traditionally taken those roles as house owners." And that concludes my project on patriarchy, sexism, and misogyny found in Hispanic culture.